has joined the meeting.
Good morning, Madam Clerk. Do we have a quorum?
Well, I will need to call a roll to determine that.
Okay. The VRE Operations Board meeting will now come to order. As we are meeting virtually, please remember to mute your microphone when you're not speaking. And please only use the chat function to communicate with staff regarding any technical issues and not for anything considered public business. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Alcorn.
I am present.
Ms. Bailey.
Present.
Mr. Banks.
Present.
Madam Chair is present. Ms. Baumke.
Here.
Ms. Crystal.
Here.
Ms. Franklin. Mr. Kelly. Ms. Lawson.
Here.
Mr. McLaughlin. Ms. Shelton.
Here.
Mr. Stark. And Mr. Walkinshaw.
Here.
Let's see. And yes, Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Wonderful. We are going to change things up a little bit this morning. I'll be calling for a voice vote for everything except the motion to go into closed session and its certification. So I'll ask for yays and then nays and then abstentions. Please be prepared to unmute your microphone when appropriate to register your vote. And then please don't forget to mute your microphone after you vote. So the first item is the resolution finding the need to conduct our February 19th, 2021 meeting electronically. We find that meeting by electronic means is authorized because the nature of the current declared emergency makes it both impractical and unsafe for the operations board to assemble in a single location. Are statutorily required or necessary to continue operations in the discharge of the operations board's lawful duties, and the items on today's agenda are encompassed within the continuity of operations ordinances adopted by several member localities of the VRE to assure continued operation during the disaster posed by the public health emergency resulting from COVID-19. Do I have a motion and a second to adopt this resolution?
So
So
moved.
moved. Supervisor Bailey?
I believe I heard a motion by Ms. Bailey and perhaps a second by Ms. Bonke.
Sure.
All those in favor of adopting the resolution, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? I believe that motion passes. Before I ask, okay, so the next item is our approval of the agenda. Before I ask for a motion, I do want to point out that we have a closed session later. So is there a motion and a second to approve the agenda?
So moved, Supervisor Lawson.
Second, Supervisor Bailey?
Thank you, Ms. Lawson and Ms. Bailey. All those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. I believe that motion also passes. The next item is the approval of the minutes. Does anyone have any corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the January 15th meeting?
So moved. Supervisor Bailey?
Second, Supervisor Shelton.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey and Ms. Shelton. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the January 15th meeting, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Mr. Chairman, that motion passes as well.
Thank you. So, good morning again, everyone, on this snowy morning. It's nice to see you all virtually. A few comments. So obviously the General Assembly is in session. They've moved into a special session, which should go through March 1st. While there aren't any bills directly related to VRE, we have been tracking two that were in our legislative package. The first is SB 1271, which codifies the budget language from last year that allows public bodies to meet electronically during a declared state of emergency, as we are doing now. This bill passed the Senate unanimously and yesterday passed the House General Laws Committee. It will be on the floor for final passage early next week. The second is HB 1931, which would grant greater flexibility for members of public bodies to participate in meetings electronically when there is a physical quorum present. It passed the House unanimously and passed the Senate and will be sent to the governor for his signature. Last week, the House Appropriations and Senate Finance Committees released their respective budgets. This was not a notable year for transit or transportation, but the budgets do include $22.4 million in federal COVID relief funding to DRPT to be used for the state's annual commitment to WMATA. I think our next slide, please, has to do with committee assignments. So I've spoken with many of you over the past several weeks about serving on committees. Here are the updated committee assignments. The audit committee will be chaired by Ms. Crystal. The other members are the rest of the executive committee. The CEO evaluation committee will be chaired by Ms. Bailey. The remaining members are Mr. Banks, myself, Ms. Crystal, Ms. Lawson, and Mr. Stork. The finance committee will be chaired by Ms. Bonke. The rest of the members are Mr. Kelly, Ms. Crystal, Mr. Banks, and Mr. Stork. And the legislative committee will be chaired by Ms. Franklin, and the rest of the members are Mr. Alcorn, Ms. Bailey, Ms. Shelton, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Walkinshaw. So all operations boards members are welcome to participate in any committee meeting. We certainly welcome the additional input. And thank you to everyone, all the members and all the chairs for agreeing to serve in this capacity in this year. Finally, as a reminder, I did want to, again, we will be going into a closed session later in the meeting to discuss a personnel matter, so please stay tuned for that. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Dalton for his CEO report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, Operations Board members and others. Just wanted to start with VRE implemented a mandatory requirement for all riders to wear face coverings on board VRE trains and at VRE stations back in May of 2020. A federal mandate effective February 1st, 2021 also requires masks to be worn on board VRE trains and at stations. And we just continue to see nearly 100% daily compliance. And more importantly, the requirements of the new federal mandate, which actually had us had a few other requirements, primarily with messaging to our passengers and stuff like that. We are in compliance with that. On February 5th, myself, VRE frontline workers, transportation leaders, and their respective frontline workers met with Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg and other leaders from US DOT. We discussed the newly implemented federal mask mandate and other COVID-related topics. And then later this afternoon, I, along with other transportation leaders from across the region, will be meeting with Senator Mark Warner to discuss effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the region's transportation grid. Ridership. We continue to see, operate at a reduced service level. S Schedule Plus, for the past couple of months, ridership has been down compared to last fall. And we had 2 additional days in January whereby VRE did not operate service. This was due to the increased security posture in the district during the presidential inauguration. In recent weeks, ridership has picked up, but somewhat dampened on days where we have experienced winter weather events, just like today and just like yesterday as well. Next slide. So our average daily ridership in January did pick up slightly compared to December, almost 1,200 average daily riders for the month. But the total number of service days for the month was the lowest in the past 12 months. And again, primarily because of those couple extra days of no VRE service. Next slide. On-time performance continues to be strong, 96% system-wide. Reported a couple of months ago, right before the holiday period, where we were seeing an uptick in freight rail traffic. We still see a moderate uptick, and then we still have at times we still have some congestion coming out of Washington Union Terminal, and some conflicts with some Amtrak trains. But overall, very good system performance. Next slide. So our VRE project spotlight this month is automatic passenger counters. And just as background, the Operations Board approved the contract for the purchase and installation of automatic passenger counters for VRE's fleet of 100 passenger rail cars in May of 2018. Since then, manufacturing of the system components, delivery of installation kits, and the installation of the system has occurred. Just as a quick reminder, just overall, the automatic passenger counting system, when fully deployed, will provide several things for us. First, the ability to provide passenger loads by passenger car to first responders in the event of an emergency. Sharing passenger load data with onboard crews to help determine strategies to distribute disembarking passengers more evenly along the platform. And for planning purposes, having precise boarding information by train and station will assist with planning for consist makeup and parking strategies. The system will also eliminate the current manual counting of passengers, thus providing more accurate ridership reporting to the National Transit Database. And then finally, the ability to issue real-time alerts through VRE Mobile, indicating seat availability by car, will help passengers on the platform know where to board to better guarantee a seat. Next slide. So just simply the hardware, the physical part of the system. can be seen on board the trains as depicted here in this slide with the red arrows. There are several sensor bars that are located over each of the railcar's 6 external doors that detect and calculate movement, either boarding or alighting. And then these sensor bars connect to an onboard counting computer, which through a series of routing and transmissions and ends up on a VRE server. Next slide. Just wanted to show you this. To verify the sensor's accuracy, we installed video cameras and made nearly 3,200 recordings so we could compare the time in boarding alighting information between the two systems. So the sensor data provided during this testing period proved to be about 98.5% accurate. So currently our vendor is fine-tuning the real-time data screens and their reporting software before loading it onto the VRE server, hopefully later this month. We will then continue to work to add the various features previously identified into various platforms for communicating ridership information both internally and externally. Next slide. So VRE has joined NVTC and other public transit providers in a regional marketing campaign, which launched late last month. The campaign was made possible by a grant from DRPT and with local matches from VRE, OmniRide, and 5 other Northern Virginia jurisdictions. The campaign's message is that in these challenging times, the region's trains and buses continue to get people safely where they need to go. Multiple platforms, including social media, news media websites, radio traffic reports, and audio streaming are used to communicate the message. The second phase of the campaign, which kicks off in March, will include video ads on YouTube and streaming services like Hulu. All ads drive people to the novarides.org website, which includes trip planning, resources, and information on studies demonstrating the safety of public transit during the pandemic. And then just a couple of items to wrap this up, Madam Chair. Just wanted to follow up from my report last month. We do continue to work internally with our regional partners to identify the split of the regional allocation for the relief package known as CRISA, which was the relief package following the CARES Act. I will continue to provide information in my weekly updates to the Operations Board. And then finally, Madam Chair, I just wanted to state I'm pleased to announce the promotion of Sarah Higgins into the position of Director of Mechanical Operations. Sarah has accomplished great things during the past decade as a VRE staff member, and prior to that, working for our contracted service providers. In the senior leadership position, Sarah will be responsible for the warehouse and inventory control, mechanical and operations administration divisions, and report directly to me. I will provide her bio and some other information in my next week's update to the Operations Board. And that's the end of my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Dalton, and congratulations to Ms. Higgins, and thank you for your service to VRE. Our next item is public comments for this meeting. Public comments were taken electronically. The public comment period opened 1 week ago today and closed at 8 a.m. this morning. At this time, the clerk will read comments into the record. Madam Clerk.
Yes, Madam Chairman. This is from Mark Scheffler from Prince William County. Quote, with ridership down 90% and future ridership uncertain, I'm concerned about the long-term viability of the current VRE commuter business model. Telecommuting, the reduction of 5-day office work weeks, improvements to I-66, I-95, and Route 28 will significantly impact future VRE ridership growth. Expanded roadways will induce more vehicles and congestion-free bus transit service at the expense of premium commuter rail service. The best way to address these concerns is to plan for transit-oriented development directly adjacent to each station. This is especially important at VRE stations in Fairfax County. I also hope Alexandria will develop a new VRE station in the Eisenhower West area, as this is logical endpoint for future MARC run-through service. High-density development around the intermediate stations will also improve the viability of bidirectional VRE service and create opportunities to increase affordable housing supply in the region. With significant investment in these rail capacity by the Commonwealth, I hope these items are addressed in future jurisdiction comprehensive plan updates and the next VRE system plan. End quote.
Thank you very much for the comment and the feedback. And again, we welcome all comments, which you can make electronically via our website. I did realize that I neglected to ask my colleagues if they had any questions for Mr. Dalton on his CEO report. No? Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
thank you. No comments on the report. Just want to thank Mr. Dalton for his recent visit and state of the VRE report to Prince William County. We really appreciate him coming.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Shelton?
I also wanted to echo the compliments to Sarah Higgins. I was able to meet her on a trip with Supervisor Bomke, and it's really pleased to see her moving forward.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any other questions or comments in the CEO report? Hearing none, we will move into our action items. So the first is action item number 8A. It is a resolution to authorize amending the GEC 7 task order for the Alexandria station improvements. Rich, will you please introduce the item for us?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The recommendation is asking the Operations Board to authorize the CEO to amend the current task order for design services for the Alexandria Station Improvement project that was executed with HDR Engineering, which is under our GEC, or General Engineering Consulting Services Agreement, or GEC 7, in the amount stated in the resolution plus a 10% contingency for a total amendment of $86,290, which would then, of course, increase the total amount of the task order not to exceed $1,308,546. And just in summary, we're just right at the end of the final design efforts, and those efforts have identified several elements requiring some additional effort, one of which being some more analysis into the natural gas usage and the existing natural gas equipment at the station. As some of you know, because we are installing elevators at this station, we will use a natural gas powered emergency generator at that station, and so additional analysis needed there. We need some additional boring and soil disposal investigation there as well. That's my summary, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there a motion and a second to approve resolution 8A?
So move, Supervisor Bailey.
Second, Crystal.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey and Ms. Crystal. Are there any questions or comments on this item? Hearing none. All those in favor of resolution 8A, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions?
Madam Chair, that motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item is 8B, authorization to issue a general planning consulting services task order for relocation advisory services for real estate acquisition activities for the Broad Run expansion project. Rich, will you give us an overview of this item?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, we seek Operations Board to authorize the CEO to issue a general planning consulting, or GPC services task order to VHB for relocation advisory services related to real estate acquisition activities for the Broad Run expansion project for the amount stated in the resolution plus a contingency for a total amount not to exceed $304,552. Just as a summary, at their respective February meetings, both commissions authorized the VRE CEO to make a bona fide offer for property referred to as the contractor storage parcels. And as discussed during those briefings, federal and state law requires VRE to provide relocation advisory services to current residential and business occupants that will be displaced by the property purchase. So the purpose of this task order is to obtain the services of a consultant with knowledge and experience in relocation requirements to assist VRE for the property acquisitions associated with the Broad Run expansion project. That is the end of my summary, Madam Chair.
Great. Is there a motion and a second to approve resolution 8B?
So move, Supervisor Bailey.
Second, Crystal.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey and Ms. Crystal. Are there any questions or comments on the item?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Ms. Lawson?
Thank you. Rich, would the contract include the actual cost of the relocation or just simply the consulting fee?
It's simply, Supervisor Lawson, it's simply the consulting fee. And just, albeit we are, approaching those relocation services specifically for the, for the contractor storage parcels and stuff. And it's pretty extensive. So
Okay,
just wanted
that's
to
where I was going.
yeah, it's pretty
I'm
extensive.
sorry to interrupt, but let me ask, I guess, give you my thoughts and then maybe you can answer me better. It seems pretty hefty for the consulting fee alone. And I recognize that contractor storage has a lot of clients, so maybe it's hefty because they have to relocate a lot of different customers. Does that weigh into the cost of that fee?
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor Lawson. Again, as discussed during the briefings on this, we don't, until we make this bona fide offer, we won't know exactly how many business entities, and exactly how many different, whether it's residential or commercial entities are affected here. So obviously this is, as discussed previously, this is somewhat the worst case. That we have to deal with, multiple entities, again, some entities that currently occupy contractor storage site, could be like one firm that has, 5 or 10 different rental spots, if you will. So if that's the case, then at least we're dealing with, potentially fewer firms or fewer contractors in there. So
yeah, I just, for the sake of the operation board's knowledge, I just speaking from a familiarity with this business, I'm thinking that the cost is what it is because I do know that there is a large variety of clients, customers, I guess tenants is a more formal word,
there you go.
from people that store their RVs to contractors that store heavy equipment. So I guess I was looking for like affirmation of what my thoughts were, and it sounds like I'm going to go with that.
Madam
Thank
Chair,
you.
if I may jump in with a question.
Yes, Mr. Kelly.
Rich, I'm assuming then you're saying this is a not to exceed right now, or are you saying this is a flat contract? And it might be good to explain a little bit what specifically our obligations are to these businesses. I mean, how far do we have to take them?
Well, thank you, Mr. Kelly. So again, at this point, without knowing, very specific details on the specific businesses within the contractor storage, or tenants, as Supervisor Lawson referred to, we're making assumptions here that we, as we have with the actual cost side of the relocation expenses, we're making some very conservative assumptions here that we would effectively have to, if there's any displaced tenants, that we would essentially up to and including being able to go, find, acceptable or alternate, sites for them to conduct similar or the same business. And of course, there's some limits. Essentially, there's some limits on what those expenses are. But again, we're making assumption more on the relocation cost side. We're making the assumptions that that we would be responsible for the upper limit, if you will, of those potential costs.
So this is a situation where the cost could be less than this, or are you saying this is a flat contract and we're
the cost could be less.
okay? Thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Bonke?
Yes, so thank you, Madam Chair. Now I'm a little confused. I need to clarify this in my mind. Is this only for the consulting, and then you will be back with another action item regarding what the actual cost will be for those tenants that will have to be relocated?
Thank you, Supervisor. Yes, I think you characterize it correctly. So this task order for relocation advisory services is to bring on experts in this field that will identify or help us identify on a tenant by tenant basis what those potential costs, what those potential what the process will be. And then, yes, we'll come back to you in a separate item that actually identifies what those actual relocation costs are.
Okay, and then my follow-up question, Mr. Dalton, would be this particular company that we've engaged services with, are they somebody that we have on call, or did we bid this contract out? And I would think that Mr. McIsaac has reviewed this contract and it's pretty tight.
So I'll answer the first part of your question. This is we have a general planning consulting services contract that essentially covers several different topics. One of which being, some level of real estate type services, and specifically in this case, the necessary advisory services that we need, again, for relocation experts. So this is a consulting services contract that we have, and what we are simply requesting here that we issue a task order off of that contract to perform these services. Now, of course, that task order process has, there's a process for that in which we send a scope. We ask the GPC consultant to make a proposal, and we review those costs. And in some cases, we engage in some level of negotiation relative to ensuring that both sides, ourselves and the GPC consultant, we both are on the same page exactly of what the scope is. So if there's something that Mr. McIsaac wants to add to that, I'll let him do that.
Madam Chair, not a great deal, but just in response to Ms. Bonke's question, I mean, this is a standard contract that that VRE uses. It has all of the very rigorous provisions that are typical of local governments, so that we have a very strict invoicing process where they need to justify the actual costs that they're billing us for. And of course, we have the provisions relating to audit of books and termination for convenience, and all of those things that ensure that we can manage the contract closely.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for that clarification.
Madam Chair, Matt Kelly, one follow-up question.
Mr. Kelly?
And this might be, it's more of a request than a question. At some point, and we don't have to do it today because obviously it's going to take a little time, and we've had this conversation at a number of levels, that there are a lot of moving parts with regards to what leases say, what obligations are and everything, and what our obligations are. But it might not be a bad idea in the near future to kind of brief the board, seeing we have a relatively new board, on what our actual obligations are to the tenants as it relates to cost. So we're not dealing with that issue and having to take votes on monies at the same time. So going into this final decision, when we have to make these, we're all up to speed on what exactly our obligations are.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Certainly appreciate that suggestion. I think it's a good one. Any other questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Please say no. Okay. Any abstentions?
Madam Chair, that motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Dalton?
Yes, Madam Chair, spending authority report, little light this month, just had one item to report. We amended an existing purchase order with International Display Systems, or referred to as IDS internally, for software integration services for the variable messaging system proof of concept project in the amount stated here on the item. Just as a quick recap, we stood up a proof of concept for variable messaging systems at both the Fredericksburg station and Alexandria, and that work will essentially lead us into the next iteration or the advancement of our variable messaging system or variable messaging systems. And of course, we picked Fredericksburg and Alexandria for this project because it's all, the other element there is there are joint use stations with VRE and Amtrak. So we're integrating all of that messaging system there. So from the work in the proof of concept, there's some additional software enhancements that both ourselves, VRE and Amtrak, want to make. And so that's the reason why we amended the purchase order. And that's it for the spending authority report, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any questions on that from my colleagues? Hearing none, we will move into a closed session. Ms. Lawson, will you please make a motion to move us into that closed session?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Pursuant to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, Section 2.2-3711.a, I move that the VRE Operations Board convene a closed meeting for the purpose of discussing one personnel matter involving an appointee of the commissions.
Second.
Thank you. I believe that was Ms. Bailey. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, great. For this motion, we will do a roll call vote. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Alcorn?
Aye.
Ms. Bailey?
Aye.
Mr. Banks?
Aye.
Madam Chair? Ms. Bomke?
Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Aye.
Ms. Shelton?
Aye.
Mr. Stork?
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw?
Aye.
And Madam Chair, that motion passes.
Thank you. I believe everyone just holds tight as we wait for everything to move around us.
Yes.
Yes, Madam Chair. The host is set up to just automatically take those who are participating in the closed session right into the closed session. So nothing we need to do unless I advise otherwise. So stand by. Madam Chair, we are live streaming and recording again. So you can now certify the closed session.
Got it. Great. I think Ms. Lawson, do you have a motion for us?
I move that we certify the closed session.
Second, Supervisor Bailey.
I think is.
I don't know. Was I supposed to read a more formal?
I believe so, yes.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I got that one. Steve, can you help me out?
Sure. The certification is should be in front of you. It certifies that only the matters identified in the closed session motion were discussed during the closed session and no other matter. That's essentially what it is. I think there is a written motion that I know the clerk has in front of her. So I think if you simply move the certification that has been provided to the board already, that would be sufficient.
My apologies. I don't know what I did with that one, but I moved the certification that was provided by the clerk.
Thank you, Ms. Lawson. Is there a second?
Second, Supervisor Bailey.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Alcorn,
Aye.
Ms. Bailey,
Aye.
Mr. Banks,
Aye.
Madam Chair,
Aye.
Ms. Bomke,
Aye.
Ms. Crystal,
Aye.
Ms. Franklin. Aye. Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Lawson,
Aye.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Aye.
Ms. Shelton,
Aye.
Mr. Stork,
Aye.
and Mr. Walkinshaw.
Aye.
And Madam Chair, that motion passes.
Great, thank you. So the Operations Board will advance discussion recommendations from the closed session to the commissions for their action. Next up is Operations Board members' time. I'll ask the clerk to call on each member. Please let us know if you have something to share at that time.
Mr. Alcorn. Ms. Bailey,
No comment. Thank you.
Mr. Banks,
No comment. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
No comment, thank you.
Ms. Bomke,
No comment. Thank you.
Ms. Crystal, Ms. Franklin,
Just very quickly, as chair of PRTC OmniRide and obviously a member of the VRE Ops Board, just want to thank everyone for being as patient as we kind of go through the pandemic and figure out ways to get back on our feet fully. And so we just want to thank all of our transportation workers and just know that we are with you. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly,
No comment.
Ms. Lawson,
Pass.
Mr. McLaughlin,
No comment.
Ms. Shelton,
No comment.
Mr. Stork,
I just wanted to thank Rich and Steve for putting together the information. I thought it was very helpful, and I think it's a way to kind of move things forward more quickly in the future with that kind of background, and really help me as a newer board member to dig into and understand and not only make hopefully good decisions on behalf of my constituents and the VRE board itself. So thank you.
Mr. Walkinshaw,
No comment. Thank you.
Okay, well, that concludes our business for today. Is there a motion and a second to adjourn?
So moved.
Madam Chair.
Bomke.
Bailey.
Thank you, Ms. Bomke and Ms. Bailey. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all. We'll see you next month.
Bye.
Has left the meeting.